but you're also talking about a highly competitive, highly intense situation. And I think you want guys to be really into the competition and really hate it if something bad happens. You want that. And so if that's the case and you have these kinds of emotions going on, and you have this whole background of how you deal with some of this kind of stuff, then these kinds of things are going to remain in the game a little bit. And the game is changing. You can't run into catchers anymore. You can't you can't slide hard into middle infielders making double play anymore. People think you shouldn't throw at hitters. People think all of these unwritten rules are stupid. Okay, that's great. I'm for it. The game, let's totally change the game. But the vulnerability is that the competitiveness starts ebbing out of the game a little bit, and that's not going to be as fun either. So I mean, just as some history, I think you have to understand, where if whether you agree with it or not, you have to understand where it came from.
That's fascinating stuff, and that's a great perspective on it. I'm going to tell you why I'm kind of a hypocrite on this one. Do want to thank Berry Coffee, berrycoffee.com, Steve Brem's company. This is a Minnesota company. Started out as just one guy who wanted to be able to help people, help people's businesses, make workplaces better, and do it in a very green and environmentally friendly and responsible way. And Steve's done that. We talk about the coffee all the time. I have it every single morning of my life. I always have 2 cups of coffee, and it's fantastic every time because I got my coffee and my machine from Berry Coffee. But it's not just coffee. Tea, flavored waters, Flavia and Altera teas, Red Bull, Nesquik milk, V8 Snapple, Florida's Natural, Welch's, very fine juices, hot chocolate cider, chai tea, cappuccino, cold instant drinks, sweetener, sugar, syrups, creamer, liquid, creamer powder, a million different kinds of teas. I could go on, but I think you get the idea. Snacks, paper goods, and janitorial. They can do pretty much anything you want. They can bring anything you want to your workplace, to your home, to your bar, to your restaurant. And I know that more and more places are availing themselves of Berry Coffee, and we really love our association with Steve and his company. So here's where I'm a hypocrite, Roy. I don't like seeing hitters get thrown at. I don't like the unwritten rules of the game. I think that in the modern game, the way home runs are flying out of the game, no lead is safe, so you shouldn't stop playing at any point. And yet, when I was a quasi-athlete, and if I were good enough to be a major league pitcher, I would absolutely drill people. I absolutely would say, "Oh, you flipped your bat? Take this in the butt." I would absolutely back people off the plate. I would absolutely throw at people. I would absolutely, run in from the bullpen and take a swing at somebody. So I'm absolutely a hypocrite. It's really easy when you're sitting way on the sideline or you're sitting behind a mic or in the stands to say, "Don't do that." But I know I do it.
Yeah, it really is easy because you take all the emotion and embarrassment and anger and everything out of it, and they're not playing in a vacuum in any sense. On so many levels, they're playing in a very, very highly competitive, intense, wanting to make more money, wanting to be better, wanting other people not to show them up. I mean, it's a different situation, so you can understand. Or hopefully you can understand, where that comes from. I mean, as I was thinking about as we're going kind of through the history, I mean, there's a great story about Don Drysdale. I may have told you this is not that long ago. I mean, and so you talk about the indoctrination of younger players. I'd go out to Dodger Stadium and I'd watch the Dodgers play and Drysdale and Koufax and those guys. And Drysdale was as tough a guy as there ever was on the mound. And there's a great story about, a young player, rookie coming up, facing Drysdale the first time. And he gets in the box. He's looking down. He's starting to dig in and getting a real good foothold in the box. And now he's ready and he looks up and Drysdale is standing right next to him. And it almost knocks him over. And Drysdale walked all the way down from the mound. And he said, dig it deep, you so-and-so. I won't say what it is. Dig it deep, you so-and-so, because I'm going to bury you in it. And the next pitch, the guy's on his back, right? I mean, he told him he was going to do it, and he did it. And so I hear this story from, my dad or my uncle or Vin Scully or somebody, and I'm 10 years old. I'm going, oh, okay, well, that's the way the game's played. And it really is, highly charged with fans for all the reasons that you have identified. And it's easy to be hypocritical about it if you're true to yourself like you are, because you recognize that if you were out there in a situation and someone was, and you just got beat. Nobody likes getting beat, and you just got beat. And not only did you get beat, but the other guy is celebrating, maybe in front of your own home fans, and making you look bad in your estimation. You can remove the emotion from it. Say, you know what, you just have to understand. You have to grow up and understand that, you just lost that one. Well, that's easy to say when you're not doing it.
Absolutely. Great history and great perspective. I appreciate that. Let's get a couple other baseball topics. Still want to quickly thank Tony Hoaglund, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent, works out of Champlin, but he's easy to work with wherever you are. He handles my insurance, Michael Russo's insurance, also provides financial services.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans. This is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoaglund. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number one in car insurance since World War II and number one in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
All right. We're talking here on Friday morning. Buster Olney just came out with a rather remarkable stat. Boy, did I screw up and miss it. Basically, he wrote about how bullpens are absolutely exploding. And by some metrics, the Twins has been the worst of them. But it's not just the Twins. Buster tweeted out, the number of performance-challenged bullpens has exploded. Only 5 teams have bullpen ERAs below 4 runs. 4 bullpens have ERAs in the 5 to 6 range. 2 teams have bullpen ERAs over 6. And the Twins are obviously the major issue with this team right now is bullpen. Can you get the last outs? Can they handle a game where the starter only goes 5 or 6? Devin Smeltzer saved them last night. Not one of his greatest performances, but he saved bullpen arms. Taylor Rogers obviously can't go 2 innings one day and come out the next day and perform. They have all kinds of problems, but it's this convergence of the fact that middle relief has always been the weak spot on major league rosters, and hitters are better and more and stronger than ever, and the ball is flying farther than ever, and those two things just don't really work together very well.
And they have all kinds of technology and data and video. I mean, they've got iPads up on the walls where in the dugout where a reliever comes in, they dial up examples of that reliever pitching to other hitters, and they see all this stuff before they ever walk up there and go to the plate. I mean, it's incredible now what's going on, and it with the bats and the balls and the data and frankly the dilution of talent throughout, because of how many teams there are and injuries and taking away talent and all those kinds of things. It's very difficult. It has swung the tide in favor after the starter. It's swung the tide in favor of the hitters over the bullpen, and it wasn't. It hasn't always been that way. Not just because of better talent before in terms of lack of dilution, but just because of the data. Just because what you can see now before you ever go up there, and guys are getting a lot better at knowing what to look for, knowing what's going to happen, and what kind of pitches are going to be thrown to them. It's striking how it's happening all over the league. That the statistic that Buster has put out there it certainly passes the eye test because it's happening to everybody. Walk-offs and late innings rallies. Coming back from a long way back in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning. I mean, it's happening everywhere.
Absolutely. Twitter question from Lonnie, General Soreness, who came out to see the Russo show the other night. Good to see Lonnie. Do the Twins have enough starting pitching to A, win the division, and B, win a playoff series? He also thanked you for the unwritten rule explanation, and he said it reminded of Oscar's quote. Please, Roy, we haven't talked about it in a long time. Give me the great Oscar Gamble
Well,
quote.
You know what? That's why Oscar's line is so great, because it applies almost universally to any topic, and especially about the unwritten rules in baseball. Some people don't think it be like it is, but it do.
Absolutely. So he asked. So Lonnie's question: do the Twins have enough starting pitching to win the division or a playoff series?
Well, it ties into. It's interesting, isn't it? It ties into, as I was going to add about the bullpens. Starting pitchers are not pitching as deep. And so, it's one thing historically to have a guy go 7 or 8 innings and then you bring in your closer, right? Or you have a setup guy in the 8th and your closer in the 9th. That was kind of the evolution. From the early days when it was Raleigh Fingers just coming in the, with 2 outs in the 7th, to then you had Mariano Rivera setting up for John Wetland, for gosh sakes. You'd have in the 8th and 9th innings were over. And now you're getting a situation where starting pitchers are going 5. If they get 6 innings out of a starting pitcher now, everybody's delighted. That means you've got 3 innings to go, and you've got 2 innings to go, out of your bullpen before you get to your closer. So who's going to pitch the 7th and who's going to pitch the 8th and who's going to pitch the 9th these days is tough. It's tough to put together a close out the game after 6 innings staff, to do that. So, do the Twins have the starting pitching? I don't. It goes hand in hand with the bullpen. I mean, the question will be: do the Twins have enough whole staff pitching, to win the division and to go deeper in the playoffs? It really is going to depend on how deep in a game the starters can go, and probably even more importantly, the rest of this year, the bullpen is going to pitch 3 innings a night, for most times, right? And sometimes 3 1/3 or 3 2/3. So how are they going to do that? That's the question, and it's all about managing matchups now with the guys you got, as best that Rocco can do. And as far as the starting pitching goes, Lonnie, I think that with their schedule being a little bit weaker, if the guys will step up and pitch like they can, Barrios and Gibson and Odorizzi and Pineda, and based on the way Martin Perez pitched in Milwaukee, the change that he made, we talked about throwing more fastballs. He did that. Against this schedule, I think they've got a very good chance of pitching well enough with this offense. But they got to step up and do it. You're not going to throw your glove out on the field against Kansas City, Detroit, and Chicago, against whom they have lots of games. But you can't just throw your glove out there and say it's a win. Those guys can beat you if you don't pitch well. And so, they're going to have to do it.
Well, you hit it on it for me. The starting pitching has to provide more innings. The bullpen just isn't going to be able to survive otherwise. So, I'm going to ask you the questions that I get asked all the time. And one is, why doesn't Rocco get ripped more for the bullpen moves? And it's interesting because there have been very few times this year where I've seen him make a move and I've gone, oh, that's dumb, or, that doesn't seem right. I mean, you only have the options you have. You only have the players available to you that night that are available to you that night that haven't been burned out in the previous few days. The only one that, to me, ran a little bit counter to the way this organization does things is the numbers are very clear that Taylor Rogers, if he pitches 2 innings one day, just isn't effective the next day. And when he was used in that situation, it didn't go well. But I don't know, maybe that's too easy a second guess. As I always tell people, is who else were you going to use? If you want to tell me that they shouldn't have used that reliever, you got to tell me who they should have used.